So how did South Africa produce the performance of 2025? Because that is what I regard that win as in Paris on Saturday night. I thought it was above the level that they produced in Wellington when they beat down the ABs. I thought it was beyond the performance that they produced in Durban when they smashed Argentina. I was so impressed. And there's a lot to talk about. And I guess the easy, maybe superficial thing to do would be to, look at the setups or look at this strike move and this tactic. More I think about that game on Saturday night and the more I look back at it, the more I think it speaks to something more fundamental and elemental about what makes this Springbok team comfortably the number one team in the world. I do still regard France as the second best, although there is a battle on for number two. There's a chasm to number one, and the Springboks may have just unlocked a whole new level on Saturday night. Why and how? Well, it's an interesting one to talk about. That's what I want to do on this video. I'd love your thoughts, please, in the chat down below. I'll be there with you. If you appreciate the content on the channel, hit subscribe and give the video a thumbs up as well. So, a lot of people have spoken about the red cards and how South Africa dealt with being down to 14 men. The hybrid player in Andre Esterhuizen, definitely worthy of discussion, and I'll get onto that. But where I want to start is something which has gone under the radar a little bit for the most part, and that is Boan Venter coming off after half an hour in what was not, I don't believe it was a planned replacement. Certainly Boan Venter's body language when I was in Stade de France watching him trudge towards the dugout, I don't think he was expecting to come off at that time. But the decision was taken, and it was the right thing for the team. Dwayne Vermaelen went straight over to him, put his arm around him. He's kind of got almost a pastoral role between the coach and the players, and he obviously told him the reason. But the decision was taken up in the coaching box. By who? I don't know. It could have been Dan Human. It could have been Mozandile Stick. It could have been Tony Brown. Could have been Jerry Flannery, Felix Jones. Could have even been Rassie himself. But Rassie ultimately made the call, and it was a ruthless call, but the right call for the team. Now, when I say ruthless, I don't mean cold-hearted or anything like that. I just mean decisive, problem-solving, and absolutely team-focused. And I don't know many other coaches, maybe no other coaches, who would do that. And I think it speaks to the fact that Rassie Erasmus and his coaches feel the game as it's happening, and they have that ability to solve problems on the fly. And then it's no surprise that you see the players able to do that out on the pitch. And the players in their way are ruthless and team first out on the field. The way the cohesion of that defence is all about the unit above all. And that comes right from the top. And actually, I say I can't imagine any other coach doing it. I remember Eddie Jones doing exactly this. He took off, it was Tamana Harrison. He did it with Luther Burrell as well. Those are the two. He removed them from test matches in less than half an hour. But then that was kind of it. They were like, right, you're done. You're out. Whereas it happened to Boan Venter, and I don't think he'll be ousted from the Boks squad. I think this will just be a step on his journey. And Marnie Le Bok, World Cup semi-final. How could I not think of that? In the same stadium. I was there on that night as well. I was practically in the same seat. And I was thinking on that night, oh my goodness, I'm going to watch England get to a World Cup final. The first half hour was perfect for England. And South Africa had problems. And the coaches, in fact, if you go and watch Chasing the Sun 2, you see the coaches in a huddle and Rassie saying, what do we need to do here? Opening the floor to his coaching group. And that might be one of the, that might be one of the reasons for why it works so well. Because, and you see in that Chasing the Sun 2 documentary, the environment that Rassie Erasmus has created where all of the coaches, they all have their specialities, but they can all chip in with anything at any time. And everyone's voice is heard and is valid. Rassie ultimately makes the call, but that makes them, and I've described them almost like Avengers before. They've all got their own separate thing, but the collective is better than the sum of the parts. And again, that sounds like that South African team when it's out on the field, doesn't it? So Marnie Le Bok, he was taken off the field in a World Cup semi-final. He wasn't ousted from the Boks squad. I mean, some fans were saying he shouldn't play again, but I think they've got egg on their face now and have sort of said, I was wrong. He's still as much a part of the Boks squad as he ever was, and really important as they go for a three-peat in 2 years' time. And so Boan Venter, I don't think, will be thrown to the wolves after coming off after half an hour in this game. It was team first. It was problem solving. It was reacting and feeling the game in the moment. And, I coach, and tomorrow my team, university team, we've got a cup match, big game. I've picked my side. I've selected the replacements. And in my head, I've got the replacements that I'm going to make in mind, who's going on for who and when. And most of the time, if I think about it, I stick to that plan, regardless of what's happening on the field. And I think most coaches probably do that. Not Rassie Erasmus and his coaches. And I just think that's one of the things that makes them so good. The ability to solve problems on the fly. And that rugby intelligence and intellect is demonstrated on the field as well. Look at how they solve problems and how they're set up to play on the field. Great example. When they had 15 men in that early part of the game, they were attacking breakdowns really intelligently, going for counter rucks. When they were down to 14 men, they picked and chose their rucks much more carefully and just left it a lot of the time. Real smarts, real rugby smarts. Line out. They knew, and Rassie Erasmus even spoke in the week about how much he was expecting France to maul it. South Africa didn't compete in loads of lineouts and were just waiting to stop them all, which they did. However, there were key moments in the game when they flipped the script and they did compete in the lineout. And there was one when France had a penalty in South Africa's 22 and France went to the back and it was Lou Diaga, I think. So it must have been in the first half. Lou Diaga got up and stole it. They hadn't competed till that point, but they did on that game. And that's what I mean. Feeling the game, feeling the moments, making the big decisions, starts with the coaches, but it filters down through the team. And a big part of that as well, when I think about how that operates on the field, is the respect. And I've spoken about this before, the respect that South Africa have for experience. I just mentioned it was Lou Diaga who made that big call in that moment. That guy's played in World Cups. He's won World Cups or a World Cup. He's played in massive games. He's 32 now. He's got loads of caps under his belt. He knows when to make the right call at the right time. And Rassie Erasmus and I reckon South African fans seem to recognise this as well, the value of experience in a way. And I've said it before, and I've used this example a bunch of times. As soon as a player has an age that starts with 3 in England, people start looking for the shiny new toy. It happened with Owen Farrell and George Ford, that people wanted Marcus Smith, and then Finn Smith came along and they didn't want Marcus Smith. They wanted Finn Smith. I don't get it, but I love the fact that Rassie Erasmus respects experience and the ability to use all that experience, all those caps, all that muscle memory in big moments means they're able to solve problems out there on the field. So I absolutely love that about this team. And when I think about team first and making big calls, maybe none were bigger than sacrificing the captain, Siya Kolisi, on the occasion of his 100th test match at half-time for the good of the team. Massive, massive call. I don't know how many coaches would have done that. But it was the right thing. Siya Kolisi said he was disappointed, but he understood it. It was the right thing to do for the team, and they got the result. And they all get to enjoy that. So yeah, ultimate problem solvers. Off the field, on the field. And I really respect that. Also, when you look at replacements, it's not just who they took off, it's who they didn't take off. Malcolm Marx. Did he stay on the whole game? Or did Grobbelaar may have come on for a minute or two at the end? Basically when the game was won. When South Africa had racked up 32 points. Okay, fine, we're definitely not going to lose this. Fine, Johan Grobbelaar, go and get a cap. But not before. Because Malcolm Marx was too important. That's ruthless in a different way. And I really like it. And you've sort of flipped that round. And the game changed for me when I look at it from France's perspective when Fabien Galtier made his replacements. When he took off Julien Marchand. When he took off Michael Guillard. When he took off Emmanuel Meafu. Maybe Montagna as well. The 4 of them, big men who were taking it physically to South Africa. And who did they replace it with? Aldegheri. Scrum went downhill from there. Taufifenua, yes, a big man, but he's just like big, but not as good at being Meafu as Meafu. So it was a downgrade. They brought on Jegu and Oridu, who are smaller guys. Really good players. I don't think it was the right time for those players in that game. Now, maybe the conditioning of the players means they weren't able to last, but I've taken them off so early, or bringing those players on so early, it backfired badly because France did not have the physical ability to cope with South Africa and they weren't able to make the dents. So they couldn't convert when they had all that territory. And then when it was back down the other end, they just could not stop South Africa. And I don't know if Fabien Galtier, if he was sitting there looking back at the game where he's thinking, much like Malcolm Marx stayed on the whole game, I should have kept on Marchand. It wasn't the moment for Cramont. I don't know. But then I wonder, did Galtier just have his set plan in his head? I don't know. It's an interesting one, but I really, really admire that about South Africa, the ability to react and live in the moment. It's really special. Also, when you talk about the replacements that France did have, it was pretty clear when I think about that France had a kind of plan to start the game and a plan to finish the game. They had all their big men, Miafu and Guillard, on the field, Montagne on the field at the start, and then to finish the game, Auredou, Jegu, guys that are Cramont, guys that are a little bit better when it's looser and faster. And maybe they were expecting they would tire the big South African team out and then there'd be more space. I don't know. South Africa, and this is one of the things I find really, really impressive about them. They can do plan A and plan B with the same players. With the same players. If South Africa were chasing the game and needed to speed it up and score loads of points in the last half hour of a game, you can bring on Arkia Snyman for Eben Etzebeth. And you can just say to him, get your octopus arms going, get your go-go gadget arms going and start throwing those offloads behind the gain line. And that can really be devastating. However, you can also do plan A with Arkia Snyman coming on for Eben Etzebeth. We are grinding this French pack into dust. More of the same, please. Off you go. And that's exactly what they did. So I think that is really impressive. They can do plan A and plan B and even a plan C with the same personnel. They had Andre Esterhuizen on the bench. If they wanted someone to just come on and keep doing what Damien Dialende was doing, they've got the perfect man. If they needed to speed it up and change the game slightly, they could have put him on for Visa, let's say, and into the back row, or on for Sia Khaleesi in the back row and change the dynamic of the game massively. They can change the game with the same players. And I find that really, really impressive. And I think it was a big part of the reason why they won the match. And when you think about the changes that were made, so Andre Esterhuizen was in that kind of swing hybrid role, sometimes a back, sometimes a forward. He has got time in the saddle being a forward in international rugby like he was the other week. Sasha Feinbergen-Gomezulu got moved to fullback. He has got time in the saddle. He's played in big games at fullback at international level. None of this was new. Had a winger gone off, they could have put Grant Williams there and he would have had time in the saddle and been able to make that work. Or Jesse Creel could have gone to the wing because he's done that before. All of these things have been tried and tested. And let me just bring your attention to something that I said over a year ago now when I was invited to be a guest on Jean de Villiers, Shimmy and Scout Berger's show. I said this. Rassie is willing to risk losing, doesn't want to lose, but he's willing to risk losing in order to get to a better place by 2027. Yeah. And that's what I find scary, because you're right, there were lots of errors, the offloads off the deck weren't working, they were putting themselves under pressure, but it's a bigger plan. I said it over a year ago. South Africa are willing to risk losing matches in order to fulfill the ultimate ambition. And I absolutely love that. I really, really respect that. It's not that Rassie Erasmus wants to lose. He'll go out there trying to win every game. But he's willing to risk losing to fulfill the greater ambition. And when you look back at where the Rugby Championship began with that shock defeat, I was there at Ellis Park for that game. No one saw that coming. When you look back to that game and the Boks hardly kicked the ball and they were going coast to coast, playing this all-out attack, and a lot of people were calling that Tony ball. I don't think that's what Tony ball is at all. But they were, when I look back at that now and I compare it to how the Boks played at the weekend, the Boks were willing to lose that or risk losing that game against Australia, which they did, in order to find where the breaking point is so that they can then build towards games like the one we saw at the weekend against France, and more importantly to the World Cup in 2027. I honestly think that's what's going on, because the difference in the way that South Africa approached that game against Australia, where they hardly kicked, and this game of France against France, where they did very little but kick very effectively, And I think it speaks to the fact that they were working out which players can deliver what is the breaking point, what are the limits of where we can take this. We might have to cop a loss, but we're going to be better for it. And I think the latter part of the Rugby Championship and now here in November, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the benefit of the risks that were taken earlier. And again, it's kind of, I guess it's easier to do that when you've won 2 Rugby World Cups, because the public aren't going to get on your back if you lose a game to Australia, because, you know, if England try something a bit more, a bit out of character this weekend against New Zealand and lose, people will be on Steve Borthwick's back. But Boks fans, after 2 back-to-back World Cup wins, said, in Rassie we trust, and rightly so. But the bigger point is, do you win Rugby World Cups if you don't go through that process that South Africa have gone through and are still going through? Interesting, isn't it? And just on the kick point, just to emphasise tactically how South Africa approached this game against France. I'll talk about France in a second. They kicked 39 times in that match to France's 28, which maybe doesn't sound like a massive difference until you consider there was only 30 minutes ball in playtime, and so each team had roughly the ball for 15 minutes, and that means 39 kicks in 15 minutes is approximately 1 kick every 23 seconds of possession for South Africa. Massive difference from France. They kicked in this game way more than they did in the quarter-final in 2023. What I don't understand, I know it was just a really good tactical game plan. And they did some brilliant breakout attack. Kobus Reinach's try, Sasha Feinberg, Gomezulu's try were excellent. They ground France into dust up front with their maul later in the game. The power game, they just camped themselves in France's 22. Really impressive. It was such a smart game plan and they executed it brilliantly. The thing I cannot just stop thinking about is France, Fabien Galtier must have known this was coming. He must have known. 2 years ago, 2 of South Africa's tries came from bombs that went up. He must have known this was coming. And I don't know whether it was arrogance, hubris, or like naivety that the men France didn't have a plan for it. Because they just got bested in that area, and I think ultimately it lost them the game. If there was one area that lost them the game, it was that. And the thing about France is they are so amazing in attack. Thomas Ramos, Raman and Tumac, when Dupont gets back, Peno, BL Bire, when Moafana when he's back. But they have got incredible back players. They've got some beasts up front as well. They are going to beat teams. They're going to beat very, very good teams, and they're going to be contenders for the World Cup in 2 years' time. The thing I can't look past, however, is if France don't solve this, and I talked about the problem solving of South Africa, if France don't solve this problem, I don't see them winning a quarter-final and a semi-final and a final, because I think in one of those games, they're going to get caught like they did at the weekend with the aerial bombardment. That's what I would do if I was coaching a team to play against France. And again, there's something had to be done on Saturday night. And nothing was done to address that particular area. And I think if the roles had been reversed, South Africa would have been able to come up with a plan to diffuse it, or at least to get a bit more parity. Galtier had nothing. And part of that is because, well, it's easy to say afterwards, isn't it? But part of that is selection. Deportier was the back on the bench, really good player. But knowing you're playing South Africa, and again, it's easy to say after the fact, but check Tiberghien, Leo Barret, 2 players that they could have picked that are really good aerially, that you could have chucked them in the backfield at fullback, maybe put Thomas Ramos to 10. You could have put Ntimak to 12. So you've got 2 playmakers there. But your backfield is safer and more secure, and might even, on an attacking sense, be able to chase forward and win some of those aerial bombs to get a bit of territorial dominance yourself. But for whatever reason, Galtier went into the game not thinking that he needed to solve that particular problem. There we go. I'll finish on that. I was really impressed. And I think Galtier will learn and get better from this. I think France have got to solve the aerial issue. And I think South Africa are setting the benchmark for not just performance on the field, because that's clear, that's evident, but it's the approach to managing 80 minutes from the coaching box as well. Seriously impressed. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you on the next video.